As you know, our conference topic is Agile in and beyond IT, and our next speaker is actually tackling that beyond IT really, really seriously. She's redefining HR. Riina is an Agile HR pioneer and enterprise organizational development professional. She was the one to first start working with Agile HR already back in 2010, and now she's training hundreds of HR professionals in Lean HR and Agile HR. She will introduce us to parts of Agile HR that is related to performance management, so please give a warm welcome to Riina Hellstrom.
Hello everyone, super good to be here. My name is Riina Hellstrom, I come from Finland, and my S's are strange. Is it too loud? Is it okay? Cool. So I am representing the Agile Hr Community. That's the second company I have started. It is a UK-based company, and 10 years ago, I was working for large corporations and felt a little bit off. How we treated people in these organizations wasn't according to my human view. And I always thought that there is a better way of working. There must be ways of being more adaptive, getting everybody's potential in the teams to be used. And I was also questioning the need for managers, because I started to see that the teams really were highly professional in what they were doing, and many managers did not have a clue of what the teams actually were working with. Do you have a feeling like that sometimes? And if you're a manager, you might feel that, I don't know what they actually are working with. Lucky for you, you don't have to, because management is not about knowing every detail nowadays anymore. Anyways, 10 years ago, I came across Scrum Guide, and that is how I can say Mr. Jeff Sutherland, who is here today as well, has changed my life. Because when I read the Scrum Guide, I realized, finally, somebody has written an adaptive way of working where teams can bring their all potential, get things done in a complex, ever-changing world. And that was only IT then, software and IT. But because I've been working with management systems, with organizational development, with everything in the organization from teams up to executive levels, I saw that this is going to change how organizations work. And I decided to quit my job and start my company without a single person talking about Agile HR or Agile management back then, which I'm really glad about. So 10 years ago, I started talking about Agile HR. I started networks in Finland. I started networking with the IT dudes. And you know what they said when they heard I was from HR? Stay away. You're ruining our Agile. What would be words that you guys think about when you hear HR right now? Can you just pop up a bit of words? Slow? What else? Administration? What else? Manufacturing? Necessary? Oh, wow. It is sometimes. Many people say it is the bureaucracy and police, and you fill in administrative papers, and they're just making life really hard and making it hard to be awesome at your work because they're basically disturbing your work. And this is what I really saw, that we can use Agile in HR ourselves. 4 years ago, I came across Natal Dank, who is my partner. They said I should point there. There we go. Natal Dank and I started Agile Hr Community. She's an Aussie, I'm a Finn. And now we're training globally people in Agile HR. Mostly HR professionals, so we're HR professionals, management professionals, and have created this for HR. And you know what? HR loves it. It is like they have been waiting to understand what Agile is about, and it gives them the tools, the mindset, and the method to actually create services and products that employees and managers love. If you think about the HR services as a product, the absolute same methodologies and mindsets, tools and practices can work for HR as well. So Agile HR Community is a community for HR. If you got HR people here, please bring them our way, we will help them understand, and they will then help you succeed in your work. How many of you are HR people? Oh, lovely. Super to have HR people in an Agile conference. When I asked that 7 years ago, there was not a single hand. When you asked 7 years ago or 10 years ago, are there any managers here? There were not. But now we can see this is starting to spread into different areas in organizations. So what we did as well is created the Agile HR in a nutshell visual. It is basically boiling down what we think Agile HR is about. So what we do is we divide this into 2 areas. Agile for HR, so using Agile practices, Agile methodologies, Scrum if you can, Kanban, or Scrumban, something in between, but basically just starting to use these kind of methods to co-create our products for you guys, for employees and managers, to make them useful, valuable, to cut the waste. Unfortunately, HR has a lot of products or services in our portfolio that very few people love. Can you say that you really like something that HR is creating? Very few can. So what we are looking at is creating amazing products. The consumerism thinking is coming to organizations as well. I don't think there will be a 20-year-old person coming into the employment life and wanting to figure out where to find a 50-page PDF in the internet to explain something to them. So this is kind of past us already. We need to start rethinking what we do and truly create great employee experiences that help people be awesome at their work. And how we do that is through co-creation with them. So I just recently wrote 10 case studies, or a very short case studies in LinkedIn with where we've used Agile methodologies, co-creation, a discovery phase where we get managers and employees in the room and start creating these things, performance management, reward, learning and development, all of these kind of things with the people. And you know what? They become much, much better than just with HR doing it in their own bunker. Because the customers are basically telling us what they need and what is valuable and where we can cut things that are not. What we also teach people is to be more data-driven, evidence-based. Too often we see management and HR assume. They assume something, and then that assumption is agreed on in some kind of teams or meetings, and then that becomes the norm or the truth. Why not instead do what people do in software? Why don't you try out, pilot, validate, prototype, and get data on what you're doing? Say that you're creating a new training program. Instead of even creating the training program, why wouldn't you go in and have a workshop with the people who you are training and really get their input on that? I actually used Scrum for a management training, got the management team together, said, okay, what do you want to learn? Let's create a backlog, 12 things for a year. Every sprint was 1 month, and then we started learning in sprints and prioritizing between each sprint. You can do that as well. The creativity is enormous. So we teach this to HR people, and they start using that immediately because they know that their organization and environment is so complex and ever-changing. This helps them start delivering valuable increments to the employees and managers who already want that because they've been included in developing that. The other part, which is HR for Agile, might be interesting for you guys. Who of you are working with Agile transformation? A couple of ones. So large scale, you want to spread Agile thinking, Agile ways of working. This is where you need to start partnering with your HR leaders and HR team as well. Because HR has a lot on their table regarding the organizational design, team roles, management structure, line management. If they don't understand the Agile structure, whichever you use here, up here, they don't know how to create these structural support mechanisms for that. So we can see a lot of things that we need when we start working with agile transformations. Leadership is the first one that will be changing. Whoever is a line manager will need help to understand their new role. Have you faced this sometimes? That you got the agile team here, and then you have a line manager who is trying to manage that agile team and basically shouldn't. That's happening quite a lot. And that's HR, people. That is HR who is in charge of the management structure together with the executives. So they need to understand this. Getting new roles. I was working in a transformation where I said, get HR in the transformation team because we need the new roles, and it's a big company and it takes them 2 months to just set up a Scrum Master role in their systems. And that took 3 months. Just to get the Scrum Master role defined in all of their administrative IT systems and the salary levels and all of these things that we have on global scale. So get them on board. What we also are talking about are the Agile HR services. It is like any service, like a consumer service or like a B2B service, but people are using it. So it's very important to validate that it works and that it really brings value. Some of you said bureaucracy or admin. Yes, that is also needed because we have laws to attend to. Like you guys have GDPR, for instance, that you have to take to consider, or some quality issues, quality things or requirements. We have the compliance requirements, but you can design with those. Those are the constraints within where we can work. And this is where I think that sometimes agile coaches and Scrum Masters and people from the software side are a bit naive because you say, oh, let's just get rid of rewards, incentives. And that's a very easy way to not understand which constraints we are working in. Have you ever worked with trying to change anything across 2 countries? And for instance, incentives is designed and defined in the board, on the board level. It is just not getting rid of that. So you need to know the architecture of HR to be able to, and management, to be able to change that. So this is basically covering Agile HR, and it has been very useful. So it is free, available on our website and Dandy people. So we worked with Mia Kolmadin, who's an awesome visual graphic designer and a PO Agile coach. There are more of these visuals there as well, so have a look at them. HR, let's move forward. There is a poll for you guys. Which is the biggest impediments for your Agile success currently? Can you take out your phones and answer that if you may? It's on the app. Let's see what comes up. I'll give you a minute. There is already 3 answering: C-level understanding and lack of leadership. These are most of the main reasons that transformations are halting or impediments for actual performance, is that the people who are creating the structures, the organizational design, the policies, the processes, do not understand the fundamentals of Agile. I'm working with this right now. I've been working with business executives now for the last 4 years, more maybe than HR. And when they start understanding, it's kind of a new logic for them. It turns everything around when they start understanding the Agile operative model compared to the industrial operative model. And once they realize that, they're not stupid people. They realize where they need to start changing things. And that's when we start seeing that they start creating these Agile bubbles and try to protect them from the corporate bullshit. And that's when it starts working a bit more. Somehow it's not working, let's move on. But anyway, the point being, can we get the next slide, please? The point being, here is a list of things that HR sits on, either alone or with the executive teams. Those are the things that we are working with. Long-term plans, strategy and people management, senior management bonuses, salary structures, org design, what kind of teams do we have, where are they, what kind of line management do we have? And if we don't understand Agile, we're going to create those according to the industrial way of thinking. So help HR understand Agile. Start learning Agile if you're HR, so you know both sides. There will be dual organizational designs for a long time. We won't go from fully industrial overnight to fully Agile, so there will be both of these sides. And we in HR need to understand both and cater to both sides. So I'm going to share to you a project where we wanted to create HR for an Agile team, so performance management, a new performance management model for an Agile tech company that knew what they knew what they wanted, but they didn't quite know how to move forward. And to do that side on the right, we used the left-hand side. We used Agile thinking. So I'm going to give you an example of how this works. The company is a Nordic company with about 600 people, and they were seeing that they were growing, and they had a performance management system from 20 years back, basically, which they copied from outside, and it didn't really work, and it didn't really help with Agile performance. So, all right, good. A current reality check first. We came in and started to see what works, what doesn't, what do you want, are you clear on the problems, etc. And this is the co-creation discussions that we held with the management group. We asked them what impediments there are, what kind of support they have, are there constraints? A constraint can be we need to do budgeting every year and we need to know the performance management, the bonus budgets there, or a constraint might be we have two different units where we need to have two different sets of performance management because one unit is working in 3-year cycles and doing research and one unit is working with 1-day cycles doing digital product development. So we helped them kind of create a vision where they wanted to go, and let's see. Somehow it's not working. I need to stand here. So there were the principles, design principles for the performance management. They wanted to focus more on the future because the performance management was all about, you know, what have you done, how have you performed, and they really wanted to put that focus instead to what's coming up, how do we succeed in that. Focus on having ongoing feedback loops. How many of you get feedback once a year? Yeah, that's just ridiculous, right? It's like having a conversation with your husband once a year and say, you know what? The full year last year, you were a 3. And that's it, you know. That's like the cycle time of feedback is not enough. Work cycle time should be much quicker, hopefully immediate, but at least they wanted to have more ongoing feedback loops. Cycle time was important for them. They've actually had units that worked with different cycle times. One doing research, where the grants were 2 or 3 years, and it didn't change that much. The other ones where they did digital product development and really, really fast iterations. And they wanted to connect it to career paths because they didn't know how to explain to a software developer what that person could be in later on in their career if they continued working for them. Okay, so how to move forward? The thing is, I don't know. How on earth can I know what they need? So I started to use, of course, Agile methodologies because I'm an Agile coach and trained in that. Here are the ugly slides that we used. So I said, we were in a hurry. You can see everything ugly, unredacted. Design principles. We set design principles first for strategic goals, continuous improvement, and the long-term development. So management side of that, then the continuous kind of Agile part, and then the Agile part isn't taking care of career steps and long-term development. So we set some design principles for that, but took them as version 0.1. Then we created a development path. You probably can't see that very well. We started with co-creation. We got some decisions made by the executives to say, okay, these are the constraints, this is what we want. And we said, okay, let's start trying and modifying and modeling this. We created the first model, and then we put it to some managers and stakeholders and said, here's the first model, what do you think? And the reaction was, oh, that's too much, and we can't do all of that. Here's the first model. If I get this clicker to work. Yep. Ugly slide, detailed model, we talked this through. So the strategic side was there. We got strategic must-win battles, financial target setting, follow-up through KPIs, and bonus is attached to the actual KPIs and financial targets in this company. Then we talked about, okay, we want continuous improvement of teams in the team. So we start using different feedback loops, peer feedback, team feedback, retros, and self-evaluation as well, creating an individual development plan which is updated all the time. So, and then we wanted to have, in the teams, we wanted to have OKRs, objectives and key results, if you know what that is. And then that was the idea that we want that to be happening within those agile loops, within the cycle times of those sprints. So we wanted to, as a HR team, we wanted to support them do that in their job rather than add on a performance management layer. Do you follow me? Because in Agile there is a continuous development, so why don't we help them do that better instead of have that and then some kind of performance management on top? But that doesn't take care of the long-term development, so we had also, we suggested that they would have career coaching and then top experts, so some kind of very deep experts in AI, in some tech parts that would spar the people who want to learn in that specific domain. And we got the results from this validation that we then created a second model of. They just said it's too much. And we created model 0.2, which we then took to the employees. We said, this is a draft, what do you think? What we wanted to validate with them was the design principles and certain questions. Here is a demo. We had the demo, 160 employees, 1-hour sessions, demoing this model, having structured feedback and getting the comments from the people and showing the results to them as well. Here are examples that we did. Question, it is great to have teams and individuals owning and deciding on their target setting frequency themselves. You can see the results there. What do you think these people who were against it saw when they saw these results? This is change management. You don't have to say any more than that. Most of the people say that teams are fully capable of putting their own cadence in target setting. So why don't we use that as a design principle? The other one, are you responsible yourself of your development? And you can see the results there as well. Most people say, yep, I can be responsible of my individual development plan myself. Good. Let's use that as a design principle for the performance management system. Because you guys say that. Of course, we asked also for, this isn't working that well. Demo results, biggest concerns. We asked the people of your biggest concerns of this model, and they wrote us a list of things that we used, again, as feedback and developed that model. So we went from this model and cut a lot from it, which the company wasn't ready to. What then happened? And now I want to say, it is not about the model, it is about how we come to the model. Do you see the difference? There isn't a right performance management structure or system. It is what the previous speaker was saying, you have to think what works for you and your context. And if you work with your people and trust them to be smart and willing and helpful and want this to work, You will be able to design a model that works for you with a professional HR person that knows Agile. So the front end for the version 0.3 looks like this for the employee. The manager is responsible for setting key results for the teams in the cycle time that fits them, because this is how we created basically agility across the organization and not forcing everybody into the same, made-up cycle. Feedback was really important. Feedback from the project in the retrospectives, peer-to-peer. They had decided that they want to have this kind of a mobile feedback app that you can give feedback to anybody. I wasn't a fan of it, but they really wanted it, so they started using that. And continuous development and work together through retrospectives and Kaizen. What was new to them was this mindset shift from a company is responsible of your development to I will take responsibility of my own development. A huge mindset change and requires quite a lot of support for that as well. And if you want to talk with your manager about your long-term development, you can ask for a development discussion, but it's not forced. The manager should at least once a year have some kind of check, but it doesn't make sense to have a conversation, then don't. So we come to look at our design principles. Focus on the future instead of the past. That was, we got to the point where this was working. Focus on having ongoing feedback loops. That was kind of a check in the box. Works with this design. Cycle time. The researchers were really glad as well about this because they said, you know what, actually we want to make target setting every half year because that's how we can keep a momentum up. Now we haven't had any targets. We have the grant and we have the whatever we were researching for 2 or 3 years, but we actually want to have a target setting session. And that came as a pull from themselves, not as a corporate policy. Influences motivation quite a lot if people design their own performance management system, or at least are able to participate in that. What we did not come to with this yet is the low performance, how to have interventions if there is low performance. We hoped, and I believe that the ongoing Kaizen and the Agile system takes care of low performance. If you've got a great PO and a good Scrum Master, and you've got a trusting team where people actually can talk about feedback, but that's a long way sometimes. Are you some guys struggling with low performance in teams? Always? Yeah, so there is a lot of things that you could do there with the low performance in teams, especially take care of the retros, if you got that, make things visible, use metrics, talk with people one-on-one. There might be some people issues that the software developers are not used to talking about. So help people with people issues and software issues as well. It might be as easy as there were 2 teams who sat in different floors, and they had agreed on having buns on a Friday, coffee and cake on a Friday. And they were supposed to invite them upstairs, and they never got an invitation, but they saw somebody bringing cake upstairs. And that, my friend, hindered these people from collaborating together for several months, until one of my friends went in and started digging and said, you know, what's the problem here, and blah, blah, why are you not trusting each other? And then they dig in, and they come to the point where somebody says, and they had the cake without us. So sometimes it can be something like this. And they said, no, that wasn't even for us. That was a misunderstanding. We never had cake. Oh, so we've been basically treating each other badly for 3 months now because of nothing? Yes, exactly. So there might be things that you don't expect. And adults sometimes need help with talking about these things as well. We also connected it to career paths, so the long-term discussions were connected to, this company had made very nice cards of different positions, kind of profiles. This is a senior developer, this is a senior AI, whatever, this is an architect. What do we expect from the architect? What kind of skills do they have? And they visualized that so people can actually see what kind of paths they need to take to move forward. It was a really good tool for the long-term development discussion. Here's where they took over themselves. They got version 0.3. It is validated with the people and employees and managers. And that's when they... Really? I need to go. So, half a year after this, they are still validating. A couple of studios, these kind of digital studios, were testing the model. So we went into test phase then, validation with real people and real teams. They tried a couple of IT tools that supported this performance management model. They had support created for the objectives and key results. The management wasn't that good on writing strategic must-win battles. They could not, it was such a fast-paced business that the financial targets were the best targets for them. If they would have changed it to must-win battles, those would have changed all the time. So we still had the financial targets then. They were still struggling to find software because they started with the design and then started looking at software, and I think that's a much better idea than to start with the performance management software and then create your process accordingly. It's not very good. They have realized that teaching people to take accountability of their own individual development is a long road. It requires time, it requires reflection, it requires understanding of really kind of knowing who you are and feedback, and ability to also process that feedback. So they created some structures and support for that. They've got some coaches, not agile coaches, but these career coaches helping with that. The feedback culture has become much more positive, so they've really have put a lot of effort in supporting that people start working with feedback in every part, either the product or the team or individuals, peer-to-peer, even with managers. That's where they were half a year after this. So my key learnings from this case is simplify. We started way too complicated because we wanted to try to cover everything, and because people don't have the architectural understanding of management and HR, etc., you need to start becoming really simple. So simplify what it means to people if you talk with them. Can you be responsible of your own development plan, yes or no, or from 1 to 5? Are you able to set goals in your teams in a cycle time that you decide yourself from 1 to 5? That is simplifying an architecture which is pretty heavy and complicated in the background. Co-create. Whatever you do in HR, or if you're creating organizational design, start working with the people and get them to validate things with you. Feedback, feedback, feedback. We always talk about that in software development. We should talk about that in HR as well. Transparency. This was scary for this company. So when we started opening up our version, what version? Can we show something which isn't ready yet about this an important thing? Sure we can. Because if we would launch and implement something which is rubbish, that wouldn't be valuable at all. How many of you love your performance management system? No? One, good. So some really do think it is valuable, good, designed to purpose, and bringing the value. Trust. Here we come to one point which is super, super important in Agile. What is your human view? If you don't believe that people can really participate, want to do a good job, that their feedback comes from a place that they want to help you instead of harm you, that is where you can't start co-creation. So you need to start trusting the people. You need to have a human view of people are capable, willing, and smart. And that's when magic starts happening. And facilitating change, now we have how we did this, co-creation, validation, asking, transparency. Do you know how much change management we needed? 0. Do you know how much change resistance we needed to deal with? 0, because we had the teams who were willing to start trying it out, starting to trying it out. The other ones were left alone. And that's because of the process of how we bring people on board. They have done the thinking already. They've gotten to be able to share their concerns about things. And then they're ready and willing to start using the products and services that they have been creating. So facilitating change is an art, and you can use agile methodologies and thinking for change as well. Lean change and agile change. I'm not sure why this clock is saying 14 minutes. I think can somebody help me with time management? 3 more minutes. It says 14. I was like, okay, I can go on for 14 minutes, but maybe I'll let you go for lunch. So upcoming in Europe, we got more programs. The Istanbul, Helsinki is tomorrow, but Istanbul was gone already. But there are programs coming up in different parts of the city, the world. Have a look at them. Send your HR people there. We are also now, the first time ever in the September, licensing new trainers around the world. So there is a licensed trainer program in London coming up. So this is helping organizations go agile and HR start creating awesome, awesome products for their employees. Go and help your HR be awesome. Teach them agile and teach them this mindset, and they will start creating great employee experiences. Thank you on my behalf. Happy to talk with you during the breaks, and I will have a Q&A session regarding these things as well. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being the driver to move Agile beyond IT. Next up, after the break, we will wait for you at 1:10, where on next stage we will have Q&A session with Riina, covering topics such as Agile HR, Agile management, Agile transformation.